With the madness known as NBA free agency and summer league actually being pretty interesting this year, we're all actually forgetting something that ran rampant in the playoffs, and with absolutely no answer. It induced a bit of outrage at the time, but after all of the crazy things that have happened in this offseason, these injustices faded to the back of the NBA fans' mind. This doesn't have to do anything with a parody of the NBA or any other recent issues, but rather, it has to do with a rule, or to be specific, a lack thereof. It's been in the NBA in one form or another for years and years now, but it's gotten more ridiculous as time moved forward. Each season, a little bit of bending to the rules here and there allows this to still live, and it continues to frustrate the fans who are sick and tired of it. If you're new or you don't follow the NBA that much, let me give you a rundown. In order to do that, however, we have to go back to where NBA legend Dwayne Wade was still a player at Marquette College, and now retired NBA journeyman Sam Cassell was playing for Milwaukee. An unathletic average guy, Cassell had to rely on his guile and wits in order to score in the NBA, against the premier athletes that littered the league in the late 90s and early 2000s. According to him, it took 3 years in the league in order to master the art of scoring. While it took him a while to take off, when he did, he became one of the best mid-range shooters in history. He had multiple moves in his bag of tricks, and one of those was something that caught a young Dwayne Wade's eye. At Marquette, Wade attended a nearby Bucks game, where he witnessed something that would change his career forever. You see, one of Cassell's favorite moves was to pretend to shoot a shot, or pump fake, wait until the defender jumps in the air, and then either shoot it while they're out of position, or leaned into the airborne defender in order to draw a foul. The instant Wade saw that, he was hooked. It was the perfect move to add into his growing offensive arsenal. And so he did, and continued the art of the pump fake alive during his Hall of Fame career. As soon as he entered the league, he was a factor with 16 points per. By his second year, his offensive skill set was doing him wonders as he averaged 24 points a game, while averaging 5 trips at the line. Part of that is thanks to that very move that has become a staple in his game. When Dwayne Wade first entered the league, Kevin Durant was 14 years old. Little did Wade know, but Kevin would continue to carry the move into the next generation. However, instead of using skill and guile in order to draw a foul, KD became infamous for an unsavory move that NBA fans everywhere hated: the rip-through. For those of you unacquainted with the rip-through, here's a clip. Now, do you think that's a shooting foul? You know what? I'll give you a second to think about it. If you said it's not, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It just looks like the guy with the ball is just flailing their arms in order to try and get a foul. Well, until 2011, that wasn't just a foul, that was a shooting foul. So they would get 2 free throws for just doing that. Makes no sense, right? Well, the NBA thought it did make sense until a desperately needed change in rule interpretation came in the form of a present on Christmas of 2011, forcing Kevin Durant and other players to remove the move from their bag of flopping techniques. At its essence, you can sorta argue that the rip-through is beneficial to the game, as it forces defenders to give offensive players space to operate. However, I don't think that means that the offensive player can just go ahead and get 2 free points because they're being guarded too closely. Thankfully, the NBA agreed, but not outright. It's not a shooting foul anymore, but it's still a foul. In fact, listen to this clip from the NBA referee handbook.
This is an example of a defensive foul initiated by an offensive player moving into a defender's outstretched arm. If contact is made when a defender is in this position, even if it is initiated by the offensive player, it is a defensive foul, as the defender is responsible for his extended arm.
You see, it says the defensive player is responsible for the foul because their arm is outstretched. What? Their arm is outstretched. These are NBA players who play basketball for a living. I think they'll be able to handle if someone has their arm outstretched in front of them. But that's besides the point. The rip-through is not as bad as it was in the previous years, but a new move has come about which takes less skill than the rip-through. For lack of a better term, I'll call it the Harden maneuver. Now, what exactly is the Harden maneuver?
They didn't do the time before. Oh, and Gibson fouls Harden on the three-point attempt.
Yeah, that's what it is. Even though it looks like Harden is chucking up a shot just to get a foul, the refs still blow the whistle and Harden gets 3 easy points. Why they still call it is beyond me, especially since Harden had literally more 3-point shooting fouls than any other team in the NBA. That's right, 13 players combined couldn't get the amount of 3-point shooting fouls that Harden got in the regular season, and he carried it on in the playoffs as well. In the first round series against the Thunder, Harden got 9 3-point fouls in just 5 games. Russ had some too, and along with Lou Williams. And I remember being annoyed to death because of how long it took. 2 free throws takes long enough, but 3? It just gets to the point where you want to spam A or X depending on your system in 2K, but you can't because the game is still loading, and so you're forced to look at the substitute and all that, but even though you really don't want to. It's just really annoying. But anyway, if you get to that point in an actual NBA game, something is wrong. And the really scary thing about this is that other players are catching on. If you remember in the finals, Curry was taking a little bit of those too. In fact, just imagine if Curry started taking advantage of this next season. You're an NBA defender, one of the greatest long-range shooters of all time, decides to call a pick. And you have to go over the screen if you don't want 3 points on the board. Then, as soon as you reach your hand over to get over the screen, Curry immediately goes into the Harden maneuver, giving him 3 easy points at the line. So what do? Go under the screen and pray that he misses? Or do you go over the screen and pray that the refs don't call it? As you can see, this is a conundrum that could plague the league next year if the higher ups aren't careful. Now, fortunately for everyone who enjoys the game of basketball, the league executives are also complaining about the Harden maneuver, with one GM saying that the Rockets are gaming the system. After a meeting that contained all 30 GMs, the league's vice president promised that something would be done about the way that 3-point fouls are assessed. Hopefully this does happen, and if it does, I propose that the Harden maneuver should be assessed as an offensive foul compared to a defensive one, as it's the offensive player that's initiating the contact and not the defensive player. You know, sort of like the charging foul. However, if this doesn't happen, then the Rockets might break the record for the amount of 3-point shooting fouls in the regular season, since they just added CP3, one of the league's most notorious floppers, and one of the players that abused the rip-through back in its heyday. So if anyone from the NBA is watching this, please make this change. We're tired of watching it. It just disrupts the flow of the game. We just need change. But anyway, with all that out of the way, I'll see you next video.
They know that I'm ballin'. Chains on time coffin. Beat the odds, never thought it. Blast off like a rocket. Now I got dough in my pocket. Hit the bucks, we're walking. How can I worry about haters?